The 911. No other sports car has a more illustrious history. It's a sports car for every day, but it's no everyday sports car. It's sporty but comfortable too. It's engineered for performance but reliability too. Its design makes sense, but it excites the senses too. It's built for the road, but for the racetrack too. And what about the driving experience? Perhaps a little as if James Brown were to improvise on Eine kleine Nachtmusik or Mozart on Sex Machine. In most disciplines, it's a specialist, despite their contrasting facets. It benefits from a classical education and still has a fabulous groove. Black turtleneck sweaters, short skirts, long hair, demonstrations. The 60s. What an era. The Rolling Stones make anarchy socially acceptable with satisfaction. The pill arrives. Change is the only constant. The world starts to think in new patterns. While society bids farewell to traditions, we develop a classic, the Porsche 911. A car with race-proven engineering and comfort conceived for everyday driving pleasure. In 1963, the 911 rolls out at the International Automobile Show in Frankfurt. Reactions are mixed. The automotive press responds with rave reviews and predicts success. The public reacts with greater restraint. In brief, for many the styling is not trendy enough, not 60s enough, but it's the design of the century, as is discovered only later. Actually, like the miniskirt, what an outcry. And today, it is simply part of our life. A look at its inner values. The 911 is powered by a dynamic 6-cylinder horizontally opposed engine with race-proven dry sump lubrication. A chassis with intelligent suspension and short wheelbase makes for agile handling. From the very start, its brakes are among the best ever installed in a car built for everyday practicality, guaranteeing the last word in safety. Its 2x2 seating configuration and luggage compartment make room for exceptional comfort, assuring high utility value in everyday operation and all-round satisfaction, you might say. Its design primarily meets functional and aerodynamic criteria and still excites the senses. Both high-powered and cultivated, sporty and comfortable, race-bred and safe, functional and aesthetic. The 911 is a study in contrasts. A first-generation rebel. After all, it's the decade of rock and roll. With 130 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, the 6-cylinder horizontally opposed engine of the first 911 attains a top speed of about 210 kilometers per hour. Highly impressive for that day. It manages the 0 to 100 kilometer per hour sprint in 9.1 seconds. As early as 1965, the 911 leaves the doubting Thomases, who didn't consider it a genuine sports car, in the dust. At the Rally Monte Carlo, it finishes 5th right off the bat. 4 overall victories are to follow in the coming years. Its success formula? Ongoing further refinement. Although it was a fascinating car from the very start, the first 911 becomes a legend because it marks the beginning of the 911 evolution. Without this passion to constantly further improve it, models in the 60s like the first power-boosted 911S with 160 horsepower, and the world's first internally vented disc brakes, or the 911 Targa would never have been created. Perhaps the conquest of space rubs off a bit on our engineers in this decade, because in 1967, the 911 Targa appears with a clear view of the skies. As the world's first safety cabriolet, the 911 Targa is something entirely new. Its roof construction is both open and closed. A simple yet thoroughly revolutionary concept. The students also revolted back then, albeit for other reasons. The 70s arrive on the scene. The flower children are still there, but waning slowly. Porsche, on the other hand, is still growing strong. Freedom of thought and personal expression continue unabated among the engineers and the customers. Not with flower power, but engine power. 1972 sees the arrival of a 911 that for many motorsport fans remains the epitome of the perfect sports car till the present day. The Carrera 2.7 RS in lightweight design. It's about 100 kilograms lighter than the 911S. It reaches a top speed of 240 kilometers per hour. It accelerates from 0 to 100 in 6.3 seconds. The embodiment of pure sporting performance. Then, 1973, the oil crisis. West Germany is supplied with only 75% of its former crude oil allotment. The USA gets none at all. The United Nations debate environmental issues. And Porsche doesn't waste time on debating. Rather, presents a sports car, the 1974 Paris Auto Salon, which follows the performance principle more uncompromisingly than ever before. The first 911 Turbo Type 930/50. It's also the first 911 of the second generation. With 260 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, it accelerates from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.5 seconds. Top speed 250 kilometers per hour, making it the fastest German road car. The 911 Turbo, in that day, a car that swims against the current. For Porsche engineers, a perfectly normal procedure. For Porsche customers, exactly what they want, more performance. And for the second time, Germany becomes the world soccer champion. Performance and environment, speed and oil crisis. A contradiction in terms? Insane? Hardly. Porsche turns in pioneering work not only in the red zone, but in the green zone too. In 1976, for example, all 911 models are built with a fully zinc-coated body. From here on, Porsche grants a rust guarantee of initially 6 years and later 10. Far longer, in other words, than bell-bottom trousers and disco are in. And the new boost intercooling introduced in 1979 in the second 911 Turbo assures exemplary fuel consumption ratings for a car of such prodigious power and peerless performance. Performance is consistently and successfully pursued in racing too. With numerous victories, the 70s constitute a triumphant racing decade for the 911. Models like the 911S 2.0, the Carrera RSR 3.0, or the 911 Carrera RSR Turbo write motorsport history. Because whether at the Rally Monte Carlo, the Targa Florio, or the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the the 911 finishes out front on all the classic tracks and lends racing a special flair. The next decade, however, does have its problems with the flair of the 70s. The 80s. Disaffection with politics is the order of the day. Neon, the camouflage color of an undecided society. Graffiti announce no future. But once again, Porsche goes against the tenor of the times and contradicts that no future verdict. Because in the 80s, Porsche introduces more innovations than ever before, multiplicity instead of singularity. Rolling off assembly lines are two models destined to prove crucial for the future 911 series, the 911 Cabriolet and the first 911 with four-wheel drive. Both ideas were at first highly controversial. Hardly imaginable, considering that the cabriolets today are among the most popular 911 models. The 911 Cabriolet 3.0 SC combines the sporting spirit of a 911 with the pure pleasure of top-down driving. It rapidly becomes one of the world's best cabriolets. 6 years later, even the Turbo is available as Cabriolet and Targa. Before the four-wheel drive model goes into series production, it is tested in motorsport in what is arguably the most spectacular 911 development, the Porsche 959. In this technology pacesetter, vintage 1986, many innovations are introduced. Permanent intelligent four-wheel drive, dual ignition, three-way catalytic converter, ABS, and naturally, the first bi-turbo. Highlight of this engineering triumph, an electronic control system for ride height adjustment and chassis damping. Most of these technologies flow into 911 production models in the following years. In 1988, Porsche celebrates its 25th anniversary with a new 911 Carrera 4 Type 964, the third 911 generation, and the first production 911 with four-wheel drive. Featuring an impressive array of new technologies, the 911 Carrera 4 once again revolutionizes sports car engineering. With a top speed of 250 kilometers per hour and 3.6-liter displacement, it is the fastest and most powerful 911 with normally aspirated engine to date. But also, and this has by now become axiomatic, the safest and the most environment-friendly. The four-wheel drive not only assures greater safety in borderline situations, it also contributes considerably more agility and driving dynamics. Equipped with a three-way metal catalytic converter as standard, it is, despite its awe-inspiring power, the first automobile that meets all exhaust emission regulations worldwide. And while some try to fake broad-shouldered masculinity with shoulder padding in colorful Miami Vice look, the Carrera's shoulders are an expression of true power. Finally, another premiere follows in 1989, Tiptronic. It combines the convenience of automatic transmission with the sporting spirit of a Porsche. At just a touch of the gear shift, it handles shifting sequences at lightning speed and virtually without interruption of tractive force. Admittedly, our designers too may have worn narrow white leather ties in the 80s. To err, after all, is only human. In the various 911 models, on the other hand, they were unerringly on target. The 90s are the era of mass consumption. The world economy is in a crisis. What counts from here on out is selling at any price. Passing crazes take over musical culture. Reality TV transforms private life into a public spectacle. Extreme sports deliver the ultimate kick. Everything has to be quickly consumable, new and fun. Porsche has a different idea of what's fun and of the technologies that make it possible. They must be uncompromising. in performance but also safety, for pure driving fun. The new 911 Turbo 3.3 with 320 horsepower reaches 270 kilometers per hour and was the first to have 2 airbags for driver and passenger as standard, performance and safety. This is also the benchmark for the 911 Turbo 3.6 in 1993. With its 360 horsepower, it attains 280 kilometers per hour. But hard times are upon us. Seldom before has the economy been in such poor shape, and Porsche is not exempt. Only a transformation of the company in production, together with focus on the core values of the Porsche brand, can assure survival in the long run. Porsche focuses on one core value above all, the 911, and once again, or better yet, as usual, goes its own way. The result of restructuring, the 4th 911 generation, Type 993, and suddenly the fascination of the 911 is stronger than ever. Its 6-cylinder power plant now delivers 272 horsepower at 6,100 RPM. Front and tail sections are totally revamped. Flatter ellipsoid headlights and a broader tail result in a drag coefficient never achieved before. For the first time, a 6-speed transmission goes into action. Additionally, the model range is broadened with 2 more versions, the new 911 Targa and the new 911 Carrera 4S. The 911 Targa undergoes its most revolutionary change. After 30 years, the legendary Targa roll bar yields to an equally stable glass roof design. And the 911 Targa remains something special. So, long before people started speaking of the Society of Individuals in the 90s, we had their cars. With the Carrera 4S, a 911 is born that today undoubtedly ranks among the top models with normally aspirated engine. A sports car whose permanent 4-wheel drive combines exceptional driving safety with phenomenal dynamics. Its brakes, they are those of the 911 Turbo, are among the best in the world. Its chassis is designed as much for high performance as for comfort. 1995. The extreme sports fad takes off. Porsche reacts coolly with the new 911 Turbo Type 993. Featuring 2 exhaust turbochargers, permanent 4-wheel drive, ME 5.2 electronic engine management, and 408 horsepower, it redefines the performance limits of a sports car. At the same time, it is the car with the lowest emission figures, among all its contemporaries, of course. It has such contrasts that define the 911. They are carried over into its next evolutionary step. They assure the continued existence of the Porsche company. And the continued existence of the global economy, it keeps on recovering from the crisis. In the present, the TV series of the 60s are back again. The fashions of the 70s are back again. Unfortunately, the 80s are also back again. We've seen a lot come and go, because we were there throughout it all, and life goes on as usual. The 911 Type 996, in all modesty, is a bit better yet. And now marks the 5th generation. Its engine is an all-new development, but its concept hasn't changed at all. It still has a 6-cylinder, still 2+2 seats, still a short wheelbase and a chassis for extremely agile handling. Its brakes are still the reference models. And just as then, the public was at first skeptical at the new model's premiere. At first glance, many find the lines of the new 911 not sporty enough. Only a short while later, its design is acclaimed all over the world. It has become significantly more comfortable and spacious, but still more powerful and sporty too. The new 911 Turbo unites seeming opposites like no other sports car. It is the fastest and most powerful production model in Porsche history, but it is still no sports car for drag races at the stoplight. 420 horsepower, 305 kilometers per hour, from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 4.2 seconds. Specifications that automatically banish all thought of competition. Porsche Stability Management PSM, permanent four-wheel drive. Porsche Side Impact Protection System, POSIP. And if desired, Porsche Ceramic Composite Brakes, PCCB. Technologies that give you the reassuring feeling of sitting in one of the world's safest sports cars. At Porsche, nothing has changed. Like with the Stones, rock and roll for 40 years. So what is the 911? A slice of the automotive future with a 40-year past. A strong character which, despite all its contrasting facets, has never stooped to compromise. Quite the contrary. A series production hero that turns in better performance all the time. And somehow becomes more and more itself the older it gets.